Part 3 begins with Victoria, a wraith who is a part of Micah's triari with Hunt and Isaiah, tracking the demon using temperature variations in the air and figures out it was in Fyro recently, which is Bryce and Rune's father's district. Hunt and Bryce quickly realize that it's using the sewers to get around the city unseen. So they go and visit Hunt's friend Tharian, who is the River Queen's captain of intelligence, and ask him to keep an eye out for the demon in the waterways or anything else unusual going on. Next, the two of them suit up and go to see Sabine, Danica's mother, who 100% denies that Danica would have gone anywhere near the temple on the night that the horn went missing. She also very explicitly blames Bryce for Danica's death. We see Ethan and his current alpha, Amelie, on guard at the werewolf encampment, and they are really, really horrible to Bryce, because they think she cheated on Connor at the nightclub on the night Connor was murdered. We actually find out that treatment from the werewolves and community as a whole drove Bryce into a really, really dark place. After losing Danica, we actually get clarification that Bryce was, in fact, so deeply, deeply depressed that she had contemplated taking her own life. And it was only because Juniper came and intervened that Bryce did not jump off the roof of her building. It's awful to see that. Well, we've jumped ahead 2 years and, Bryce is keeping her head down. She is pushing on forward. That the past 2 years have been so incredibly difficult for her. She has felt so alone. And, we got to know and really like Danica in the short time we got with her. And we cared a lot when she passed away. So you can only imagine how awful it was for Bryce to not just lose Danica and the pack of devils and basically her core group of friends, but to then have pretty much everyone turn their backs on her afterwards. I think there's a clear distinction between depression and being depressed. And while there is no implication here that Bryce has depression, we quite clearly see that she had a period of being severely, severely depressed, quite understandably, given the circumstances that she was living through. While they are out and about, walking down the streets in Fyro, Hunt and Bryce are attacked by the Crystallis demon. Hunt can't use his magic because he is bitten by the Crystallis demon, and we realize that a bite from the Crystallis basically stops you being able to use your powers. But the two of them working together are capable of killing the demon. When they make it home, they are caught mid-kiss, Bryce and Hunt. We love this. We love this so much. But they're caught by Sabine, who has come at them with a gun. They accuse Sabine of being the one to kill Danica, and she totally denies it and tells Bryce and Hunt, now that there's, no audience around, that it was definitely Danica who stole the horn from the Fae Temple, and that she has done everything she can to cover it up because she does not want her daughter's legacy, and really, let's be honest, her reputation and legacy being tarnished by this act that Sabine has no understanding of. She's just been doing everything she can to hide the fact that Danica stole the horn just before being killed. Bryce is gagged by this reveal. It's really hard for her to wrap around the fact that Danica did something so dangerous and so controversial and didn't include Bryce in any way, or at least let Bryce know that she was doing something that seems, within the context of what Bryce knows, so illogical for Danica to do. So she is in shock, and it's 5 days' time when Rune turns up and tells them about a synthetic healing drug called Synth that is doing the rounds in the city. It's very, very important. Meanwhile, Tharian has discovered 8 different bodies, all of whom he believes were killed by this Crystallis demon Hunt and Bryce have told him about. And Tharian shares this information and talks about, and shows them what the Crystallis attacked bodies look like, they really start to question whether Danica was killed by the Crystallis demon, because the wounds that were on Danica look nothing like these bodies. And there was no venom of the Crystallis demon present in Danica or the other bodies at the crime scene in Bryce's old flat. So at the minute, we have no answers, just more and more questions building. So Bryce decides to do something hella controversial, and she calls upon a friend, an actual demon called Adus. And Hunt is just like, you are doing what? What on earth? Because we find out that Adus is in fact the Prince of the Chasm, the 5th level of hell. He met Bryce at age 13 as she was outside of the Oracle's temple crying, while he was in like the form of a white cat. And he comforted her at the time, so Bryce feels like she can trust Adus. He's been nice to her so far. Adus lets Hunt and Bryce know that the Asteri themselves, these 6 beings that rule Midgard, have been spinning lies about hell and the princes of hell. He lets Hunt and Bryce know that demons have no real interest in Midgard. That there is no big otherworldly plan for them to come and attack. Demons kind of aren't like that. They're not desperate to overtake Midgard and being kept behind magical doors that something like the horn can open. And just before they finish this like interdimensional call summoning session, Adus tells Bryce to find him once she's made the drop. Adus is just, there are so many questions about him and what's going on, but he does reframe this idea of demons bad, us good. He's like, guys, it's way more complicated than that. You have no idea of what's really going on. What the Asteri have told you is the truth, and history might not all be totally above board. At the shop, Jezebel has a massive tank delivered, built, and filled up with water because she has acquired a magical creature called a knock. And in terms of its description, it's very much giving Kelpie vibes from Silver Flames. It's just hella lethal, aquatic creature that's aim is to drown people. And, we know the Kelpies SA, the people that they pull into the water as well. Now, Victoria, the Wraith who works with Hunt and Isaiah, she retests Danica's clothes from the night she died and finds that they are in fact covered in synth. And Render Industries, who we know Danica had been involved with because she organized Bryce's date with the heir of that business Danica had been doing security work for, they have redacted all of their studies and insights into synth. Like when they start looking for information on the drug, everything in the files is either deleted or redacted and just disappeared. So it's looking hella sus. But one thing that can definitely be found out is that one of the ingredients of synth is obsidian salt, the material used to summon demons to you. And Danica was covered in this drug when she died. Tharian reveals to Hunt and Bryce that he knows Danica was seen dealing synth on a boat on the river sometime before her death, and that in very, very high doses, this drug that it can be used to heal people, it can give a burst of super strength. If you're one of the Vanir, you can take the synth to heal yourself, or you can take a ton of it and get like a super boost of power. Or if you're human, you can take synth and gain magical abilities. Now, this is really tough for Bryce to hear because the implication here is that not only was Danica involved in synth, she was actively dealing it and helping spread it around the city. Bryce is hearing this, and it's really difficult for her to reconcile what other people are telling her is true and what she actually knows about Danica Fenrir as a person. On the anniversary of Danica's death, Bryce goes to a bakery and buys like a set of croissants to go and eat and commemorate Danica. But when she opens the packet, someone has iced the word crash onto one of them. Because if you remember, the whole city hates Bryce. They think she's a slut and they think she's responsible for like betraying her friends on the night that they died. And Danica was very much loved. She was incredibly popular and famous and well known in the city as the heir apparent to the werewolf prime position. You know, Danica was a good un in most people's eyes. And so people see Bryce as like the rotten best friend, and they'd all rather Danica still be alive, which is actually something discussed earlier on in the books when Hunt and Isaiah are initially looking into Bryce and Danica, and Hunt comments on the fact that when all the facts are stacked one after the other, Bryce had never gotten a bad grade or gotten in trouble prior to meeting Danica. And Hunt says quite clearly, well, it looks like Danica was the bad influence on Bryce, not the other way around. So it's just this idea of what the masses are aware of and what they know. It's not necessarily reflective of the truth. But now we are honing in on the actual actions and activities prior to Danica's death. And that line between what's perceived to be true and what is actually true is getting murkier and harder for Bryce to navigate. There's a difference between what she's being told and what she knows to be the case. If you can imagine, Danica's not there to answer any of these questions. So it's just really a tough time for Bryce and for Hunt at her side to try and navigate, because Bryce has quite strong convictions and they're all being queried and questioned. One of the things Hunt has really come to admire about Bryce, it's the strength of her conviction. And to see her waver and wobble and be unsure of herself really jars with what Hunt is coming to appreciate and know about Bryce as a person. When he finds out that this has happened to Croissants, Hunt flips out and goes and kicks off massively, because he now knows that Bryce isn't the person the media and people like Sabine would have everyone think. Bryce is a good one. The next day, Bryce agrees to finally get her leg healed. If you remember, in the attack with the Crystallis demon on the night that Danica died, she was heavily injured. And it turns out she has left this wound, hasn't had any like medical, magically powered intervention happen, and has stayed in pain for 2+ years. And it's very symbolic of like carrying the pain of losing Danica literally with her every single day. But she and Hunt go together and a medwitch extracts the venom from her leg and stores it with the hope of creating an eventual antidote to the side effects of something like synth. You know, it's like pure Crystallis demon venom that's just been there in Bryce's leg, causing her agony every day. And now it's going to have a positive use. We're turning that pain, like physical manifestation of the pain and suffering that Bryce has gone through, into something positive that might help others. Some may say very symbolic of Bryce as a person, carrying pain with her until the point at which it can benefit others and become something good. Is she holding on to that pain to kind of self-harm and punish herself? Maybe. That's very much in line with who she is as a person. She feels guilt about what's happened to Danica, and then starts feeling guilt about being angry about not knowing the truth about what was actually happening with Danica before her death. Bryce just has so much depth to her as a character. I love her. She's so outwardly confident and beautiful and brilliant. But then as you get to know her as a person, you see layer after layer of really complex emotions. She's yet again another phenomenal SJM MC. She does her FMCs so well. Now, it turns out the person responsible for those croissants having trash iced on them was Amelia, the pack alpha that Ethan now works under. And Hunt attacks her for having messed with Bryce's annual commemoration ceremony for Danica. So Mika calls Hunt and Bryce into a meeting because Sabine has kicked off about Hunt attacking Amelia and demands that Hunt is punished for attacking one of her werewolves. And Mika says, yeah, okay, fair dues. I won't kill him, which is what Sabine wants. He's like, but I will cut off his wings. Now, they're going to heal back, but it is agony. So we literally see Hunt be tortured. We see them cut off his wings. Gagarella, so bad. At that meeting, we also find out that when Danica passed away, Bryce went and met with the Underking, the person in charge of the like moving over to the afterlife and crossing the river in Lunathium, because everyone is meant to have a shot at crossing the river. They have like a coin, they head over, very much like in Greek mythology. But the idea is that if their soul is too heavy, the little boat that they're put on will sink and they will not make it into the other side of the river, over to the bone quarter and into the afterlife. So if you've been a bad person, your boat will sink as you try to cross the Ixos River and you will never make it across to the bone quarter where the Underking is in charge. And Bryce admits that she called the Underking to her on the river and she said, look, I'll exchange my place. I just want to make sure and guarantee that my friend Danica, who has just been brutally murdered, she will get across this river. No matter what's happened, no matter what she has done, I will give up my slot, my chance to basically, oh, I'm going to cry. I'll give up my place in heaven just to make sure that she definitely has one. I'm not taking the risk. I'll give up my slot. Please accept that. And the Underking's like, that means that when you die, there will be no afterlife for you. You will not cross the water. And she's like, yeah, I understand, but I can't bear the thought of her not making it across. Like, take it. If that's the price, I'll pay it. I love her so much. I just want to make sure she gets into heaven. So Bryce gives up her afterlife for Danica, and everyone's like, you've done what? She's like, yeah, Sabine. So I knew Danica was going to make it across because I made sure she would. I made sure she'd get into heaven. Oh my God. Just, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The female friendships SJM writes they're on another level. Later on, Bryce actually hacks into Danica's sort of staff portal account with Render Industries. And when I say hacks, she uses logic to guess Danica's password because she's Danica's best friend. And she finds like downloaded and saved off the server videos of experiments to do with synth. There is footage of humans being injected with synth and then literally shredding apart multiple Vanir. And Bryce and Hunt watching this footage, they realize, no, that's what happened to the Pack of Devils. They were not attacked by a Crystallis demon. What killed them is someone on synth. Something to do with synth killed that entire pack of Vanir. Now, while Hunt is asleep, Bryce decides to go and visit her old flat, the scene of the crime. She was the sole beneficiary of Danica's will, and Danica was obviously flush with cash. So when Danica passed away and Bryce inherited Danica's estate, she moved into this beautiful apartment that she lives in on her own up until now, with Hunt moving in, and with her pet chimera Syrinx. And she goes to visit the former flat to maybe re-examine or go in and just revisit the location to find it literally on fire. Someone has set it ablaze. Then Tharion calls Bryce and says to her, you better come down to the river. Something's going on. So Bryce comes down really quickly and Tharion takes her to a boat where the Viper Queen is selling synth and Hunt is buying it. As Tharion takes Bryce aboard the boat, she's like, what the hell are you doing, Hunt? Mika, Isaiah, and the rest of like the Triari group that aren't involved in this deal all turn up. Mika claims that Hunt's realized the value of synth to the human rebellion, like from the moment they started discussing synth as part of this case, and that Hunt, Victoria, and another member of the Triari, Justinian, have been figuring out a way to buy a ton of synth and send it to the human rebels. This bigger war that is going on in other parts of Midgard. We find out that Hunt and Justinian and Victoria, they are still very much at their core the same rebels they were 200 years ago. They've learned nothing that the Asteri wanted them to about the pointlessness of trying to rebel against the hierarchical order they've put in place in this world. And so Bryce is confronted with the fact that Hunt has been working behind her back to try and get his hands on this really dangerous drug with the aim of getting it to the humans so that they can fight against and kill Vanir. Are you not gagged? I read this bit and my jaw was on the floor. My heart broke. I was like, no, he's the first person she's let in, really, since Danica. And now this. Mika says that he's found out about it all because they tried to, recruit the wrong person. And the Viper Queens basically dobbed them into Mika and informed him that this exchange was going to take place. So the actual trade that Hunt's gone there to do, it's a setup, it's a sting operation. And Bryce has come and witnessed it all happen in real time because Tharian passed the info on to her that it was happening. Hunt apologizes to Bryce. And this is where we get the second, dagger to the heart, because Hunt tells Bryce that Danica stole the formula for synth and a massive stock of it 2 years ago and sold it on the black market. Hunt tells Bryce that Danica and Maximus Tertian, they were synth addicts, and that it's very, very likely that Danica OD'd on her own stash of synth and tore her own pack open. Like, she attacked everyone and killed them, and that she used so much synth that there was enough obsidian salt present to summon the Crystallis demon, which in turn just kills indiscriminately. Hunt's like, yeah, the horn had nothing to do with it. It's the fact that your best friend was a secret druggie, messed up, took too much, killed all your friends, and accidentally summoned the Crystallis demon. What the hell? Hunt claims that when he and Bryce watched the footage that Danica had kept on file of what synth is capable of and doing, he tried to stop this exchange. That's why he's there on the boat. He actually wanted to stop the purchase taking place, but it was too late and money had already changed hands. And at this point, Fury turns up. Fury, who I'm just going to say, Fury and Juniper, I don't think they're very good friends to Bryce. They've kind of hung her out to dry. Not a fan at all. But Fury turns up and takes Bryce home. But before they head off, Bryce explicitly says to Hunt that she never wants to see him again. Because he's a traitor, which he is. And we end part 3 of the book with Hunt being locked up, Justinian being crucified, and Victoria the Wraith being torn from her body and dumped down into a trench under the water. And Bryce is a mess. I'm not gonna lie, guys. It's just another really low point in this book. You're reading it going, how much more can I take? Who's good? Who's bad? Everything's complicated. The only thing I know is that Bryce Quinlan is the only person I like anymore, really.